So, a question I get pretty often once people find out that I was homeschooled is how was it? What was it like? What was the experience? What did you do? Why did you choose to homeschool? So, today I want to dedicate an episode to talking about that. And I'm going to divide it into a couple of different parts, and hopefully that covers it. And I will say, this was the entirety of my educational upbringing, and not even just educational, but I guess just the whole the whole thing. It was my childhood and a lot of my adolescence. So of course it was much more than anything I can say here, but I want to go over some of the generals and the stuff that really stuck out to me. And I would like to say too that homeschooling is a very individual experience. It can vary drastically from family to family. So, what I go into is specifically for me. I could say it even varied for the children in my family. Like, my homeschooling experience was very different from my oldest sibling and my youngest sibling. So, yeah, it's a wide variety of experiences. So a lot of people ask once they find out, why did your parents choose to homeschool you? And I think there are a couple of different answers, but the ones that I remember specifically are that my mom was bullied and she didn't want her children to go through that. And she didn't want us to waste time, and that she wanted to have a say in the curriculum. Those were the main ones that I heard. All right, so when people ask me about homeschooling, the answer I like to give, just for kind of like a general overview of it, it's one that my sister said, and I feel like it resonates with me a lot, is that it's kind of like growing up in a different country. And what I mean by that is, like, you hear about America, you get visitors from America. Occasionally you go venture out into America. But for the vast majority of your experience, you're not really partaking in a lot of things I would consider like American. Um, and that's to say, we would go out and stuff. We would go to the grocery store with all this stuff, but our experience of everything was kind of from like an outsider's point of view. So, and it's like, yeah, you get visitors from America because your friends come over and they tell you about different stuff that they're doing, and you learn about music and some pop culture stuff and like all of that, and you're like, oh, that's cool. I didn't know anything about that. And keep in mind, when I was growing up, like we didn't have internet for some of that, so it's not like you could look up all of it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is how did we spend our time? And this, honestly, for us, it varied pretty much every single day. But generally speaking, we did school. We cooked all of our meals. We cleaned quite a bit. And then once we were done with that, like games, exploring, any of our extracurricular stuff that we engaged in. What else? Trying to think. So for us, school was year round. Like we did it through the summer. And people are like, wow, you did it year round? And yes, but we also did like have vacations just randomly in like a month. We were pretty flexible with vacations because we could be. And while sometimes we did do school on vacation, it's not nearly the same as someone who goes to like a public or a private school, because our version, like when we do our school, once you're kind of finished with the exercises and activities you need to do, you're done. So if you start early and it takes you a few hours and you finish what you're supposed to do, like, you're done. It's not according to what hour it is. So while we did do school a lot of the time, we were done sooner than the kids that lived around us. So we did have a lot more free time. And we didn't have homework because it was all at home. So we had a lot of free time, and in that free time, I mean, if we weren't, doing chores, cleaning, all of that stuff, all of the stuff to like keep the household running, we were playing, we were making up games. We did do some extracurricular stuff like orchestra and sports and everything. So like we really had a lot of time outside. We didn't really start with computer games or video games or movies or TV shows. I don't remember doing a lot of that when I was young, but it did, like, as it started to build in, I guess, like culture, it trickled down to us too. It was just different versions of all of the games that everybody else played. Um, but yeah, so that's mainly when I was younger. I'm trying to think of an age, but honestly, that's one thing too, is like a lot of people have their memories anchored into what grade they were. And that is just not the case for me. Like, I have zero idea how old I am, and a lot of my memories, just because it wasn't like, well, I was in this grade, so I connected to this, connected to that. Like, I have no idea. Um, so yeah, I want to get into education. But there's one thing first. So, one special thing that we did was on your birthday, you get a day off. And that's something, our friends who attended private or public school couldn't do. So we like always thought that was something kind of special, that, and you could choose, it was like a birthday off, like, ticket, coupon, however you want to say. I don't like coupon, ticket, I'll say that. Um, and you could use it on your birthday if you wanted, or you could use it whenever you wanted. So we liked having that. So like, maybe the special thing you want to do isn't on your birthday. You could save it up, or you could save more tickets, or you could save it for a day. So say one thing that we did is, if you got finished with your school, but you went ahead and did all the school for the next day, then you again have another day off. So you could kind of save these things up, which to us felt special. It was something, anything, give us anything. But it was something special to us, that our, maybe when we were feeling like we were missing out on some of the other things that we saw kids getting to do, it was something we had for us. Okay, so I want to dive into like the education aspect of it. And for the state that I live in, oh my gosh, it varies so much, and it's constantly changing from what I remember. But at the time, and honestly, it changed even as we grew. But I will say, specifically for me, because I honestly don't even know exactly what the criteria and like regulations were for my older or younger siblings, because they changed so much. But for me specifically, so during this time, how homeschooling worked was you could be a part of a homeschooling group, which is where a bunch of families who are choosing to homeschool plan to meet together, and they do this like according to a schedule. Maybe it's once a week, maybe it's once every 2 weeks, maybe it's every few months, depending on what they want to discuss, to kind of vote and figure out the curriculum they want to use, to be able to check in, to be able to like keep up with state regulations, all of that. And it's typically like has a leader, someone who's kind of like doing, this is how you do this, how you do this, like giving you the plan to be able to like keep your children on track. So there are groups like that. And I think I know we were part of one for a little bit, but I honestly don't remember much about that. Another way you can do it is hybrid, which there are some schools, it's like you go in 2 to 3 days a week, actually physically go in person to do schooling, and then the rest is like homework days. And I knew a few families who did that, and they had smart kids, so I guess whatever school, it was working for them. And then there was also online school. At the time, I know online school is pretty big now, especially after COVID, but at the time, I don't remember it being like that big a thing. I know you could do college courses online, and there's like the dual enrollment you could do, but maybe I just wasn't aware. But I don't remember online, like the full, middle, elementary, whatever, high school, all of those. I don't remember them having so much of an online presence. And then the way that we did it was different than all of those, because my family is big enough. My mom just decided to create her own technical homeschool group because there were enough kids to meet that criteria. And she gave it a name and everything. So we didn't go to a group. We didn't go to someone else who decided our curriculum. It was purely my mom. And she was and is a credentialed teacher. So it's not like we were like, completely on our own here. But she is one person. It's just keeping that in mind. And how she would do it is we'd go to, there was like a bookstore, but for school books. I don't exactly remember. I don't remember what it's called, but it specifically just had school books. And so she'd kind of pick out books for whatever grades we were in different subjects. And that's another thing. So for us, we didn't just graduate to the next grade. It was when you finished a book for that grade, you just got the next one. So you could be in multiple grades in different subjects. It was just kind of like, well, when you're done with this, you move on to the next. So yeah, that's why, like, maybe in math, I'd be way more advanced than something like history. It really just depended on the kid. So that's kind of how curriculum, and there were some other things thrown in there. Like, my mom's a French teacher, so we would do French and I can't even remember all the subjects we did, to be honest, but I don't know. I'm trying to think. And we used different, like, it wasn't all books from the same program or authors. So I don't know. It was a wide variety. And one of the days of the week, so like all the children were assigned to a day of a week, sometimes multiple, depending on how old they were, of course. But you'd get like I guess it'd be called like a home ec day. And that day, it's like you run the household, which honestly truly is pretty smart, because if my mom's trying to teach kids, who's doing the house? And don't get me wrong, like, we all pitched in all of the time. Like, there were enough of us that's absolutely necessary. But for that day, it's like you cook the meals, you do cleaning, you do any chores that you're doing, laundry, all of that. Like, you learn how to run a household. You don't like balance the books or anything because you're still a kid, but just things around the house. And with that day, I'm trying to remember, like, if I preferred that or schooling. I would say the thing I didn't really like about that day is that with school, there was like a definitive end to, like, when you're done. But with home ec day, it was like, so am I done now? Can I go play? It wasn't like a set, you do this many chores, cook this many things, and you're done. It was like kind of at my mother's whim. And I wasn't like a huge fan of not having something definitive I could work towards and just be done. So that was my that was my only like fight with it. Yeah. Oh, so with schooling, with education, you might be wondering, oversight. Who makes sure that these kids are actually learning anything? And I remember that occasionally we would get these booklets. They were like test booklets from the state, I believe, just to make sure that, like, we know enough for our age. The thing is, I don't actually ever remember like taking a test. I'm not sure why that was, but I just, like, I remember the books. I remember, like, sometimes filling things out, but I don't remember taking any sort of test, which is good because I never really took tests. So I just never really learned how to take tests. And now tests are kind of hard for me. But yeah, so that was kind of the way education worked. How back to testing, how you make sure is, it really didn't matter again, I don't know what, for my older siblings or younger siblings, I just don't remember. But for me, I really only started taking tests when I got older and it was like time to go to college. And how that worked for me, Um, it was that I didn't need to do an SAT or anything like that. I just had to get my GED. And that was pretty simple. I think we were trying to CLEP some classes so I didn't have to take a lot of my core classes, but that was really difficult for me. It's extremely hard for me just to study like one subject at a time, and that's kind of how my mom was trying to do it. So it's really, I just got my GED, and then I was able to go to a technical school near me, and they didn't require that you have anything besides like your damn, what's it called? Your sheet of paper that shows all your grades and classes from your school. I can't think of the name right now. But yeah, and that we pretty much just made up because like we can. So yeah, so that's kind of like once you're in college too, like once you have a few classes, like you can transfer to a 4-year school and get in. And that's how it worked at the time. Um but yeah, that's how I got into college. I didn't really have to take a test apart from the GED. I will say when I got to college that I won't say that it was hard, but just very different. And sitting down for a long period of time focused on one subject was not something I was used to. And testing, I just really, I don't know. I wouldn't say like I'm bad at it because I got really good grades. But I don't know. I'm going to go into kind of the pros and cons of my education and how I was raised and everything. So, and it's like I really found out the pros and cons going to college and like kind of being more out in the world. So the pros I will say are that I could learn things pretty quickly. Like my ability to apply a concept from one subject to another is pretty great, and it's allowed me to problem solve, I feel like, a lot better than some of the people around me that I saw. It allowed me to, okay, so one thing about homeschooling, and this kind of ties into this, is that my mother is one person and she could not teach us all of the time. So a lot of the time it's just kind of like, here's the book, figure it out. You might be thinking, how does a child do that? They cry and then they get told they can't do anything until they figure it out, and then they watch their siblings play, and that gives them motivation to try. um, and so sometimes it would be my older siblings helping us, but too they have their own school they got to do, and they're trying to get done so they can go play. So my mom would, when she bought us books, she would buy us the book and she would buy us the answer book. So she'd give us both when we got to these points and be like, here's the answer, figure out how they got there. Now, some days, truly, I did figure out how they got from one to the other. Other days, I'm just a kid. I'm just a kid and you just gave me the answer. So I don't actually have to do anything. And I didn't. Because I problem solved. I said, hey, if I have the answer right here, I don't even need to figure it out because I got it. It's in here. It's stored in my head. So because of that, and because of the days that I did choose to actually figure things out, college wasn't that hard for me because, in classes where you have teachers that don't like really teach you anything, that wasn't that hard for me because I was already so used to teaching myself. So that aspect of things was beneficial. It was interesting to have really good teachers who kind of like stayed with you throughout the whole thing. So I was like, oh man, you could be taught like this. Have y'all been getting this the whole time? Like someone just sits here and explains it to you. That's pretty nice. So that aspect was great. Like it really taught me how to figure things out myself and to try to like calm my emotions because I understand that gets in the way of being able to figure things out. Now, some of the cons are that because of the way we did it, I don't feel like we repeated things very often. Like foundational aspects of subjects, I don't feel like that's very strong for me. I kind of feel like every time I go back to a different subject to be like, I don't know. And it, like, say I'm looking at my niece's homework or something and I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like, wow, I do not remember any of this. So that's a pretty big con, is because we didn't repeat a lot of the foundational information that you kind of need to have ingrained into you. It could be tough, like if you forgot, like maybe you studied a subject for like a couple weeks, a couple months, you just forget so easily. And that, like, I did feel that a lot in college, where I was like, I know I learned this at some point, but I do not remember what we were talking about. So things that people just kind of like knew, just like, and not inherently because you learned it, but like had ingrained into them in high school and all of their public or private schooling up to that point. I just had, like, I'd have to go look it up again and like, let's start at the base. What did we do? Da, 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 da. And it was kind of for every subject I had to do that. So that was a con for me, is like, there's just kind of like no long-term sticking in my brain. And I don't know if that's just what it is for other homeschoolers or anything, but I felt that a lot. And I have felt that sense of like, sometimes people ask basic questions and I'm like, I'm confident in my ability to be able to look this up and understand it, but I could not tell you that off the top of my head. And sometimes it's simple things. And I will say that used to embarrass me a bit more. Now it's like, wasn't my fault. Okay, like I didn't choose this, but I am confident in my ability. Like I know where to go if I need the answer. Like that's one thing I'll say. That's one thing I'm good at, is I may not have the answer, but I almost always know where I can go to find it. So weak foundations. And also, as I got older and out into the world, and again with college and everything, but mainly when I got out into the world, I found the holes in my education, the things that I was like, wow, I just never learned that. Like physics, I couldn't tell you anything about physics. Like, I mean, I have basic theories that I'm like, yes, that makes sense. But I do not remember doing any physics. And also, so for all you homeschoolers out there, what are your worst subjects and why are they history and geography? Now, I know this doesn't apply to everyone, but it's so funny to me that a lot of the homeschoolers I have talked to, it really is those two subjects. And I would say for geography, you can't leave if you don't know where you're going, which I think is so funny. But yeah, like geography was a big one. I didn't learn until I started like traveling and getting out into the world. People would kind of like figure out that I didn't know where some stuff was. And I became so self-conscious of that like in my free time I would play geography games, because I was just like, they're not going to catch me off guard. You're not going to catch me out here not knowing where like one of a country is. Now, don't ask me about lakes. I do not care. I haven't cared where they were. And I still like, I do have to care to an extent to look into something and retain it and like truly want to know and learn it. I don't care where lakes are. I don't. It's just not something I care about. And if I need that information, hey, I know where to go to find it. So yeah. Let me see. So the next thing I want to talk about is socializing. So the thing about us is like, we were weird. We were strange compared to like, I guess the normal template for growing up in suburbs and all of that. Like we were strange. I can admit that. It was a strange experience, but we had land, we had a trampoline, we had a pool. At one point we had a zip line, and we had a lot of kids you could play with. And kids who weren't, I don't know, like we knew we were strange. Like we weren't unaware of that to like people's reaction when we went out, when we talked to them, like we were aware. But also because of the way we were raised, I think it was a safe place for other kids to come and also be weird. So one thing I kind of talk about with my friends is social scripts. And I feel like in public school, private school, going through all of the grades and everything, like you learn these scripts of how to talk with each other, what you talk about, all of that. Like from the outside, I can see that. So when you don't learn those scripts and you're in a group of these people who kind of know this unspoken dynamic and the script you're supposed to follow, you just like see it in real time, but you don't know your lines. That's how it feels. And so like you'll try to add something and everyone looks at you like, that's not your line. And you're like, ah. But I feel like, so when people would come to our house, it'd be such an experience for them because we don't stick to those scripts. We don't know them. So like, I feel like a lot of people were more comfortable being genuine and authentic with us because we were the weirder ones. So like, what do you have to lose? And also like we loved games. We loved playing. We loved imagination. We loved all these things. So like we had a fun house. I don't know. We dressed different. We talked different. I don't know. Our games were different. So I think like for anyone who came over, it was an experience and people liked to come. We also did do sports through schools or programs and stuff. So we'd meet kids that way. We'd have fun. We did do orchestra. Well, you know, just different programs. We didn't. So with like there are homeschool group dances for kids, like, you know, prom and homecoming and all of that. But we were not part of a group, so we didn't have that. So any kind of like school dances we went to, or if our public school friends invited us along to theirs, which for us was like a wild experience. We're like, what are these kids doing out here? What else was I going to talk about? So we didn't have dances. But we did, I don't know. I felt like we kind of went out and did a lot. Like my mom's pretty social. We would have like field trips to random places at random times. Like it would be a water park or something. We'd go do that. So I don't know. We were pretty fun to hang out with and come around. So kids wanted to be around us. But one thing about that is at our house, it felt not normal, but I guess like welcoming, bringing people in, sometimes one at a time. But anytime I went to someone else's house and like hung out with them and their friends, I did feel like an outsider, like for sure. I never knew what they were talking about. I was always like, I'd always pretend like I did because I was pretty self-conscious at the time. And then I'd go home and like frantically research everything I noted to like everything I know that I didn't know. I don't know what this is. I would go home and research it and learn everything about it. And then I'd come back to have something to talk about and they would have moved on to something new. And it would frustrate me endlessly. So I was like, damn it, I just learned about this. Let's talk about this. And they're like, oh yeah, we don't really care about that anymore. And I'd be like, okay. So I spent a lot of time playing catch up and feeling like behind and I don't know, just like strange, just like an outsider. And especially like pop culture, clothes, all of that. Like, I mean, my clothes were hand-me-downs. So they were, you know, a couple years old and maybe then even like not really like in style. So, yeah, I had a lot of that as my experience. So boyfriends, how did boys and girls work for us? Well, first of all, we were not allowed to date, which is funny because we were allowed to marry, it's such a contradiction. I just remember my mom being like, looking at me when I was 16, being like, oh, aren't you married? And I'm like, I can't date anyone. And I will say too, like, I mean, I met boys. There were boys around the neighborhood. My brothers met girls sometimes, but I don't know. For me, I wasn't like that interested in boys. I mean, I was later, of course, but it was like I don't know, anytime I was with my friends and like we were all having fun playing a game, they'd come around and then everything would change, the whole dynamic. Like they wouldn't be like as fun as they were. I'd just be like, come on, let's play the thing. We were wrestling. Let's get back to that. Something, just playing games. And I always felt like when the boys came around, it's changed things. So it'd be kind of annoying, I guess. And so I'd be like outside playing a game, and it had a specific narrative that I was going with. Like, I want to cook. I want to clean my little home in this like forest outside and sweep the dirt floor and can some berries and I don't know, just play like house or something. And then my brothers would get involved and they'd bring their friends with them, and everybody like, oh, boys, boys and girls, that awkward like tension. And then the boys would always turn it into war. Like, we're going to war. And I'd be like, fine, just go to war already so we can get back to house. I just remember like a lot of times boys made things less fun unless you need more players. In that case, I don't care who you are, as long as we can play the game. But yeah, so we weren't allowed to date. Now, did that stop us? No, not all of us. I don't know. We just, found different ways to date, different ways to kind of get around that. And I do think like, if we had been allowed to date, we probably would have been a lot safer. I'll just say that. But yeah, so that was homeschooling. I'm trying to think if there are any other aspects that I want to go over. I guess like music. Music was really interesting to me because we didn't really, I don't remember listening to that much music, except if it was like classical or hymns or something. We didn't really start listening to music until like some of the Christian radio stuff came out, or Christmas music, stuff like that. I remember the first time I snuck away with radio to be like, what's out there? And like turning it and hearing, oh my gosh, I don't even remember the name of the song, but it's like, she's a dime, top of the line, cute face, no waist with the big behind. I remember hearing that and I was like, oh, I don't know, I like this. I don't know what this is, but I like it. I'm into this. It's got a beat. What is the bass? Why am I moving? No, I'm really going to like listen to like hip hop radio stations, like in secret places in my house, because we were not allowed to listen to that at all. And like seeing my first like, gosh, what was it? My first secular music video. I think it was Shakira's Hips Don't Lie. And let me tell you, I was blown away. I was like, oh my God, her stomach is showing and I love it. I remember like me and one of my sisters like would always like hike up our shirts after that and practice moving our hips and stuff. And it was, yeah, that was like the start of the end, the beginning of the end. But yeah, so overall, I guess my least favorite parts about homeschooling are the education holes, to be honest. Like, if I didn't have that and I felt up to date on everything, I think I'd be pretty set with it and everything that came along with it. But that was tough, man. And like, I still feel that. Like, history, don't ask me anything. Don't. Because like, it's like I had to start learning, or had to use fashion as a way to like anchor my mind into what was happening at the time. I'm like, okay, what were they wearing? Because that's what they were allowed to do. Those are like, that's the extent of their freedom. Yeah. So history, like all of this, because you don't know what you don't know. And that is a downfall of homeschooling, that especially if you're being taught by one person, like they don't know what they don't know. And while my mother's very intelligent, no questioning that, there were just like, you can only do what you can do. You're one person. And there were a lot of holes that I'm honestly still recovering from. And it's good for me that I love to learn, because now things that people learn in their childhood, I'm like, oh, didn't know that. It was funny. I was playing a trivia game with a younger, like a pretty my adolescent niece. And she just like knew a lot of basic information. And I had this little pang of like envy, because I was like, you just know that off the top of your head? You just know that? I remember looking at her mom and she's been like, yeah, they just teach them this at school. And I was like, oh, I wish I just like knew some stuff like that. I have to look it up every time. Um, but yeah, so that part has been hard, and it's kind of like a pro and a con because it was really hard for me to feel like an outsider for so long. And I won't say like all homeschoolers feel like that because a lot of my siblings were very outgoing and social and loved that. But for me, like, and I used to think I was really shy. I actually don't know if that's true or if it's just I got so frustrated because I didn't feel like people were very genuine or authentic and I couldn't follow whatever script this was. So I'd get frustrated and I stopped trying. Because I'm really not shy. Like, that's just not, I'm introverted. Hell yeah, I'm introverted. But I'm not shy. And maybe I think it was just like a self-confidence thing as it always goes, I guess. But that part was really hard. But the pro is that like, the pro of it is that I don't know, I just got so comfortable in my own skin and like a lot of self-worth and like I really had to battle through that. And I kind of think because I didn't go to a public or a private school, something out there with a lot of other people, I really like learned who I was. So, and I don't know. It's interesting. It's one of the reasons I didn't go to school was to not get bullied, but my siblings bullied me. So, and Lord knows, like, no one can bully you like a sibling because they know you. Like, they know what makes you tick. They know all of the things they're going to hit with you. And to be honest, though, like, after that, no one can bully me because, like, what are you going to say that they haven't already? What can you possibly say that would hurt me more than they did? So, yeah, like, pros and cons on that aspect of, like, being an outsider because, I don't know, like, once you embrace it, it's refreshing. I've noticed that. Like, it's very refreshing to people. And I like that. Why not? Why not? But another con of it, I guess, is that I don't get to reminisce about like cultural American cultural stuff. Like people will be like, "Oh, remember this, remember that," and I'm just like, "Nah, girl, I wasn't there. I was like outside digging a hole or something. I don't know. I was balancing on a fence post somewhere. I was reading a book in my room. I don't know what to tell you." So that part I kind of am like, oh yeah. Like I'm aware of a lot of stuff, but it has all been learned. What's the word? Not retroactively. No, post it's it's all been learned after the fact. So I know what a lot of this stuff is, but I did not personally experience it as a kid, so it doesn't hold the same amount of like nostalgia that it does for everyone else. But that's okay. That's all right. I have my own nostalgic things. It's always fun when I run into another homeschooler in the wild and you get to reminisce about your own things, about Veggie Tales and whatnot. Yeah, so I want to go over my favorite parts too, which were, I guess, like the amount of time I had, because schooling was done pretty early. Like I spent a lot of time like outdoors and playing and like being in the sun and that. I don't know, I really liked being outside, so it was great. And I also I feel like I learned a lot of different skills that maybe other kids my age didn't have, like cooking. I mean, we were required to cook. We had a home ec day. We got to cook for the family. You got to impress or you're going to get bullied. So I don't know. You learned to cook. We learned how to grocery shop by ourselves. Like our mom would she'd make us take account. Is that the word I'm like? She'd make us catalog and go through like what we had in the house. We could go grocery shopping, and then she'd drop two kids off at Costco and we'd like find everything and coordinate and get and she'd come pick us up when we were done. So I feel like, I don't know, there are just certain things that I learned that I don't feel other kids kind of had at the time. And don't get me wrong, there's some stuff the other way where I'm like, I won't say I was street smart for a while because I'd be like, what? I just wouldn't like get a lot of things because I didn't have, I don't know, experience in the same way other people did. But um, yeah, I don't know. I felt like I was able to survive and that the world wasn't like a shock when I got in it. Um, in some ways, of course, not every way, but I would also, I think, really, really instilled this ability into me that like, and it took a while. I won't say it was easy as a child, but it really got to me to a place of being okay asking questions when I don't know something. Like, because I spent so much of my child not knowing what the fuck anyone was talking about and pretending for so long that I did. And then I started being like, wait, let me just, and I think it was some of my like sisters and brothers and stuff that inspired me because I just hear them be like, oh, I don't know what that is. Can you explain it to me? And I'd be like, oh, we can do that and like not be looked down upon. And sometimes you will. Sometimes people are condescending, but like you had to learn it too at some point. So I don't know. Like, I feel like that really helped me embrace just ask. People love explaining things. Just ask. I feel like there was one more, but I can't. I can't remember it right now. Okay, so I want to talk about some of the big differences too between us and other children, and it's always funny to me looking back on it because it was, I guess, strange because I'm more speaking about like what I was allowed to do versus other kids, and it stuff like other kids can watch PG-13 movies in which people could show their stomachs and like kiss and have boyfriends and all of that. We were not allowed to watch anything that showed a stomach. Ariel, she's out. Jasmine, out. Like any like SpongeBob, or I should say Patrick, out. um, I don't know. We weren't allowed to watch like anything PG-13 because that always meant like teen, kind of for teens, or not teens because it was PG-13. But no, I guess that would mean PG-13. But we were allowed to watch R-rated things. So like war, legs blown up, people stabbed, like all, we were allowed to watch that because it's like real life. We were allowed to watch anything serial killery, anything like that. Because it was real life and it was teaching us something. And I was like, or it's just scarring us. But it's like it's stuff like that. Like we can walk down our street and go explore some random woods and like climb trees and rappel off shit and like climb whatever we wanted, but we couldn't have like sleepovers at people's houses. That was just a big no. And like we can't have boyfriends, we can't do all this stuff, but we could get married. Or like I don't know, like we couldn't do a bunch of stuff, but my mom was okay with my sister and brother and I at one point like going to France alone. It's an interesting contrast now to see like what other, because sometimes it'd be like, oh, they get to do this, they get to do that, all these other kids. But then like I'd see them being like, they'd always ask their parents if they could come with us to do stuff. And their parents would be like, what? No. And I'm like, oh, y'all can't come in like a cave and explore with us, or I don't know. It was such interesting things to be like, huh, you're not allowed to do something. That's nice. We get like this is special to us. We have something you don't. That's crazy. But yeah. And the last thing I'm gonna end with is a question I kind of get as a follow up to this when I talk about it is, would I homeschool my children, and like if I had any? And my answer to that is probably not. Again, just because like you don't know what you don't know. It really is such an undertaking, and that's not really a passion of mine. Like I love teaching in general. I love bestowing knowledge on others. Like that's great. I love explaining stuff. But I don't want to spend all day, every day doing that. Like I could see the benefit. I think a hybrid program would be cool. But again, someone has to be there when the child is home to teach. And that's not really something that I'm passionate about doing. So I don't know. I feel like I'd be fine sending, if I had a child, sending my child to school if it was a good school and I like liked what they were learning and everything. And I think teaching your kids stuff at home is great, but I think you can do them together. I would not just homeschool my kids. But with that, I think like a huge not lesson, but like, what's the word I'm trying to think of? An angle of this that I appreciate is that I feel like my mom really taught us how to approach things in a different way. Like if you don't like the standard way of doing things, attack it from a different point. And if that doesn't work, try a new one. Like different perspectives on how to approach problems. I felt like that's a huge thing I learned from her that I didn't see a lot of other people my age kind of with the ability to do that. Or maybe just like understanding that that's something you can do. Like if this isn't working, why wouldn't you try something else? Something she would always say to us is go from what you know to what you don't know. And that alone, honestly, I think that got me through college. It's like, okay, where is the line between what I know and what I don't know, and how do we bridge that gap? How do we build onto that? So, would I homeschool my children? No. No, I wouldn't. But I can absolutely see the benefit of it for other people. And like I said, this is a very individual experience. This was like very specifically for me. And I know a lot of other families, even my siblings, like, I don't know, like it benefited them in a lot of ways that I can see. And I don't know, while there were some holes in my education, I've seen a lot of other kids who are like geniuses. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. That's what I wanted to talk about today. So yeah, the end.